We've examined the medical implications of the question, how old is too old? Time to turn to politics, and correspondent Robert Costa.
Are you worried that sometimes issues like age can be dominant, but discussions about some of those other issues on policy just don't get the bandwidth they deserve?
Yeah, I think that is a concern. It's easier to focus on age, because everybody kind of gets that. It's harder to get people to understand the matrix of all of the legal cases that the former president is involved in.
These are corrupt people. These are people that shouldn't be allowed to do the things they do.
Or the choices that President Biden is having to make in his dealings with the government of Israel or dealing with war in Ukraine. Some of these things, it's easy to oversimplify and say, well, this campaign's all about age. Well, age is part of it, but it's not all about age.
Dan Balz of The Washington Post is considered by many the dean of political reporters. Balz is 77 years old, the same age as former presidents Trump, Clinton, and Bush. He says the spotlight on President Biden's age is understandable and nothing new.
Think back to 1984. Ronald Reagan running for re-election. He's on the debate stage with Walter Mondale. He playfully uses his age as an asset.
I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience.
Well, I think the lesson would be that you have to confront the issue directly and you have to find a way to diffuse it and to get people to move past it. You don't want people dwelling on it.
What could President Biden do to push back against his own naysayers on that front?
Well, he's tried to do it with humor.
After all, I believe in the First Amendment. Not just because my good friend Jimmy Madison wrote it.
He's done some extraordinary things as president. That trip to Ukraine that he took was a seriously taxing, physically taxing trip. We saw at the State of the Union last year, in spontaneous moments, him take on the Republicans over Social Security.
As we all apparently agree, Social Security and Medicare is off the books now, right? They're not to be sponsored. All right. We got unanimity.
Some media watchdogs argue President Biden's age has been overcovered, overstated, and overanalyzed, particularly when compared to former President Trump's.
I think that one of the realities is that former President Trump makes many gaffes.
By the way, they never report the crowd on January 6th. You know, Nikki Haley.
We know that he mixed up Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi, the former House Speaker, during the New Hampshire primary.
Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people, soldiers.
We hear a lot about age on the campaign trail. How much of the frustration about that issue is really a frustration about the candidates?
I don't know how you separate that people don't want a rematch from partly one of the reasons is that these are two elderly candidates. There is a sense that there is a kind of a cork in the bottle politically of an older generation, frankly, of my generation.
But the baby boom generation doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
Well, it is going somewhere, slowly.
Generational tension is hardly limited to the White House. Since 2017, we've had the oldest Congress in history. With the silent generation and baby boomers still ensconced in power, Gen X, millennials, and those younger are vying for more seats.
I just turned 35, so I think about this a lot because in my normal life, I am starting to feel quite old. Then I get to Congress and I feel young again, let alone use apps.
California Democratic Representative Sara Jacobs is one of the 5 youngest members of Congress. She's pushing the average age down a notch and pushing the concerns of young voters to the forefront.
So often young people, let's say those under 40, get painted with a broad brush. They don't care about politics. Do you buy that?
No, that's total. I was in middle school when September 11th happened, and I haven't known a day in my adult life that the United States has not been at war. The financial crisis happened right as I was graduating from college. As soon as millennials were hitting their stride, we had a global pandemic. Gen Z has known nothing but school shootings and active shooter drills, a climate crisis that isn't being addressed with the urgency that it deserves.
Like tens of millions of Americans, I've used apps to track my period.
Jacobs has championed privacy legislation for reproductive health data, such as menstrual cycle tracking apps. The concern? Safeguarding information that could be used to prosecute those suspected of having an abortion in states where the procedure is banned.
What's it like talking to an older male member of Congress about a period tracking app?
I've definitely had my fair share of making my colleagues a little bit uncomfortable.
We should be talking about periods and birth control and the health care that millions of Americans need for our everyday lives.
The fact of the matter is, if we aren't talking about these issues, we certainly aren't making good policy about them.
Policy for the people, by the people. It's a challenge for the ages.